الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الحبيب المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. قال سبحانه وتعالى إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال سبحانه وتعالى والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون. وقال سبحانه وتعالى سارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة أرضها السماوات والأرض. وقال سبحانه وتعالى ولا تحنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. وقال سبحانه وتعالى ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا. Respected ulama, my respected elders, my brothers, my sisters, and my little ones, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After praising the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I begin as always by first thanking you, my hosts, for giving me this opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accepts these efforts of yours in listening to this message, as I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accepts these efforts of mine in delivering this message. I came across an article not so long ago. It was a speech delivered by a Miss Carlton Fiorina, Chief Executive Officer of the Hewlett-Packard Corporation. And she delivered this speech after the 9/11 attacks. I'm just going to read part of this speech to you, just to share with you some of what she said. And she was talking about the once upon a time Ummah and the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is what she said. She said, there was once a civilization that was the greatest in the world. It was able to create a continental superstate that stretched from ocean to ocean and from northern climes to tropics and deserts. Within its dominion lived hundreds of people of different creeds and ethnic origins. One of its languages became the universal language of much of the world, the bridge between the people of 100 lands. Its armies were made up of people of many nationalities, and its military protection allowed a degree of peace and prosperity that had never been known. The reach of this civilization's commerce extended from Latin America to China and everywhere in between. And this civilization was driven more than anything by invention. Its architects designed buildings that defied gravity. Its mathematicians created the algebra and algorithms that would enable the building of computers and the creation of encryption. Its doctors examined the human body and found new cures for disease. Its astronomers looked into the heavens, named the stars, and paved the way for space travel and exploration. Its writers created thousands of stories when other nations were afraid of ideas. This civilization thrived on them and kept them alive. when censors threatened to wipe out knowledge from past civilizations, this civilization kept the knowledge alive and passed it on to others. While modern Western civilization shares many of these traits, the civilization I'm talking about was the Islamic world from the year 800 to 1600, which included the Ottoman Empire and the courts of Baghdad, Damascus and Cairo, and enlightened rulers like Suleiman the Magnificent. Although we are often unaware of our indebtedness to this other civilization, its gifts are very much a part of our heritage. The technology industry would not exist without the contributions of Arab mathematicians. My brothers, I'm sure you would agree. May Allah give her hidayah. May Allah guide her. She is from amongst the few that speaks the haqq. In this day and age, she is from amongst the few that speaks the truth. Indeed, these were the Muslims. And indeed, these were, once upon a time, the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Europe was in the Dark Ages, so much so that the Europeans could not even read or write their own names. The lords and ladies of Europe could not even read or write their own names. Your forefathers, the people you are connected with, your forefathers, they were the torchbearers. Your forefathers, they were the pioneers. Your forefathers, they were the epitomes of guidance. Your forefathers, they were the world leaders, leading the whole of mankind, and they were leading it in every aspect of life. Your forefathers excelled, and still further excelled, so much so that they were hundreds and hundreds of years ahead of their time. Which century are we now living in, my friend? Tell me. The 21st? Your forefathers in the 10th century, how long ago was that? Come on, guys. Yeah? Alhamdulillah. 1100 years ago, in the 10th century, your forefathers had products in their bathrooms and hygiene practices. We could so easily compete with the products that you have today in Norway, in your bathroom, now at your home. Even in this day and age, we don't even have a wudu machine. In the 10th century, your forefathers had a wudu machine. You know, making ablution before prayer. They had a wudu machine. It was mobile. It was brought before a guest. It appeared like a peacock on a tray. It was presented before the guest. The guest would tap the head, and water would come out in 8 short spurts, enough to perform wudu. And they had this in the 10th century. In the 13th century, again, hundreds of years ago, the likes of Al-Jazari had already made numerous clocks of all shapes and sizes. And today the world believes that the first Big Ben is the one that you can find in London, whilst the first Big Ben was the one that was built by the Muslims and can be found in Morocco, in Maghrib, in Fez, in Fars. Coffee. The first coffee house in Europe, it appeared in 1645 in Venice. Your forefathers had already been drinking coffee hundreds and hundreds of years before the first coffee house appeared in 1645 in Venice. Why? Because it had been discovered by a Muslim called Khalid as he grazed his goats on the slopes of Ethiopia. Abu Hassan Ali ibn Nafi', nicknamed Ziryab, he was the one that introduced the concept of a 3-course meal to the Europeans. Before him, the Europeans did not even have the concept of a 3-course meal. Muslim scholars, before the 10th century, had laid down the foundation of trigonometry and algebra. With regards to agriculture, S.P. Scott says that the Muslim agricultural system in Spain was the most complex, the most perfect ever devised by the ingenuity of man. 1100 years ago, your forefathers were manufacturing paper, they were building dams and windmills. Balki Abbas ibn Firnas went as far as making a flying machine. And this was the first machine capable of carrying a human being in the air. They were designing great buildings. Who can forget the earthquake-defying minarets of Sinan, which did not even fall in the last earthquake in Istanbul? Who can forget the New York of the 9th century? Today the world looks up to New York as being the center of civilization and the capital of the world. Who can remember the New York of the 9th century, Qurtuba? In the 9th century, Qurtuba had many schools. It had many libraries. The schools were free. Houses had running water in the 9th century. The streets were paved and lit in the 9th century. Litter was collected on the backs of donkeys and taken to special dumps. And there were sewers in place and drains in place. The capitals of the modern world today, London and Paris, did not have these facilities which Qurtuba had in the 9th century for over 600 to 700 years after this. Your forefathers, the people that you are connected with, hundreds of years ago, they were building hospitals. They were designing surgical instruments. One Muslim alone designed over 200 surgical instruments, from syringes, forceps, scalpels. And I assure you, the modern day designs have not changed much from his original designs. Your forefathers were operating, building hospitals, treating cataracts. I don't know the statistics for this country, but in the UK, cataracts are the most common cause of blindness in people over the age of 50. And our National Health Service in England undertakes hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cataract operations every year in the UK. Who would think that this now has all become possible of the foundations laid by a Muslim called Imam Mosri in the 10th century? This is why Dr. Donald Campbell, a historian of Arabian medicine, he says the European medical system is Arabian not only in origin but also in structure. And he says that the Arabs are the intellectual forebears of the Europeans. And who can deny this? Maulisa was talking about Ibn Sina. The Qanun of Ibn Sina was the supreme authority in the entire world for over 600 years. This was just one work this man composed. He composed 247. Who can forget the work of Al-Razi? It was the most highly respected and most frequently used medical textbook in the Western world for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Who can forget Jabir ibn Hayyan? Unanimously agreed, he was the one that founded chemistry. He was the founder of chemistry. He was the one that devised and then perfected sublimation, crystallization, amalgamation, and all these Asians that you hear about in chemistry. He was the one that discovered sulfuric acid. Who can forget Al-Kindi, an all-round master? My young friends, the names will keep on coming to mind. The excellences will keep on coming to mind. The virtues will keep on coming to mind. The contributions your fathers and your forefathers made to society will keep on coming to mind. These were indeed the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were indeed the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. wherever they went in the globe, all of a sudden, people were interested in Islam. People were interested in the Quran. People were interested in Allah. People were interested in His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because these believers elevated the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah in every corner of the globe because of what they possessed. These believers, they were not suffering from an inferiority complex. They were world leaders. They were the torchbearers. These people were sabiqun as-sabiqun. They were the foremost. And they believed those that are foremost in this world, they are the foremost in the next world. And they are the dearest and nearest to Allah. And as a result, sari'u ila maghfiratin min rabbikum. For these people, it was not about walking to paradise. It was about rushing to paradise. It was about working 24/7 overtime for the akhirah, for the hereafter and paradise. وَلَا تَحِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. These believers were not intimidated. There was no such thing as weakness. Why? For them, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ. It was all about being superior. It was all about being a leader. It was all about being a pioneer. And for this, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةِ وَسَآلَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَمُؤْمِنٍ. They strived and they sacrificed because they knew those that strive, their striving is appreciated by their master. They sacrificed everything they possessed. They overcome every obstacle that came in their way. And they struggled and they sacrificed. And a fire burned in their hearts. And this fire did not let them rest till they excelled. Look at their sacrifices. Look at their zeal. Look at their vigor. Look at their ambition when it came to any aspect of the deen. When it came to reciting the book of Allah, you will find their zeal was such that from amongst the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they numbered in their hundreds and thousands, they would recite the entire Quran from Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen right to Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas, Ilahin Nas, Min Sharril Waswasil Khannas, Alladhi Yuwaswisu fi Sudurin Nas, Min Al-Jinnati Wan Nas in 7 days. 7 days they would finish the entire Quran. For some, even this was not enough. And they could not get enough of the words of Allah. That in spite of the fact that they were people like you and me, and they lived a life like you and me, and they had wife and children to support and provide for, but such was the passion when it came to the words of Allah, that some of them even excelled and would finish the entire Quran in 3 days. Entire Quran, my friend, in 3 days. You know, for some, even this was not enough. Even this was not enough. And they would read the Quran and they would finish the entire Quran in 1 day. Entire Quran in 1 day. And you know, you're sitting there before me and some of you look puzzled and dazzled. How can it be? How can a person provide for his family and at the same time provide for his wife and still make time to recite the entire Quran? Because you and I, what we do is we look at ourselves and we think, you know what? We pick up the book of Allah in the month of Ramadan and that book of Allah is covered in dust. And then we open it with difficulty and we begin to read the Quran and we begin to struggle. And it takes us about 15 minutes just to do 1 page. And then we make qiyas upon ourselves and we think, what? If it's taking us 15 minutes to read 1 page of the Quran, you know, it'll take days just to finish 1 juz of the Quran. So how can it be possible for these people to recite 1 whole Quran? By the grace of Allah, I'm not talking 1400 years ago. There are people alive in this day and age, living as minorities in the Western world, my friends, who can recite the entire Quran in 1 day. By the grace of Allah, one of our respected teachers, and Mufti Sahib, you know, will back me on that. Just in the month of Ramadan, the man completes he recites the Quran 30 times. 1 Quran every day, and this is minimum. Even in this day and age, if you go to Masjid al-Nabawi, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll see one of the khulafa of Shaykh Zakaria rahmatullah alayhi, who reads the entire Quran every day. You can go there and you will see with your own eyes. The ummatis of Rasulullah, some were so intoxicated with the words of their Creator to realize their purpose in life. The likes of Ali al-Azdi, he would come to the masjid, and after offering his Maghrib Salah, he would begin, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And he would not get up from his place till he had read the entire Quran. And after this, he would offer his Isha Salah and retire. You know, if this is mind-boggling and difficult to digest, then my friends, you had the likes of Uthman ibn Affan, the likes of Tamim Dari, the likes of Sa'id ibn Jubair, the likes of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, the likes of Shafi'i, the likes of Bukhari. In spite of having done a hard day's work, they would come in the night and they would stand before their Creator in tahajjud. And in just one rakat of prayer, they would recite the entire Quran. Entire Quran. And then there were those, my friend, who, there's no word that can describe them other than, you know, even the word genius doesn't do justice. The likes of Salim ibn Itar, the Qadi of Egypt, he would recite every day, he would recite 3 Qur'ans in one day. 3 Qur'ans in one day. And you know, when they left the world, you could see the nur of the Quran, the light of the Quran, and the light it brought with it on their faces and on their bodies when they left. When Abu Ja'far al-Qari left the world, and the people have now gathered to bury him, what they see is on his heart is a circle of light, whiter than milk. Not one person from amongst them that was present doubted that this was the nur of the Quran, because this man would spend day and night reciting Quran. And then this light moved onto his chest and they buried him like this. Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash, rahmahullah, is on his deathbed. And his sister's there sitting beside him and tears are flowing from her eyes. Naturally, why? Because now he's on his deathbed, and after this, he will be buried, and come the angels, Munkar and Nakir. And Allah knows best what will happen when they question, Man Rabbuk, Man Hadha Rajul, Ma Dinuk, who is your Lord, what is your religion, who is this man that was sent from amongst you? Not knowing what will the outcome of her brother be, naturally she's sitting next to him. He's on his deathbed and tears are flowing from his eyes. Such was the confidence and level of iman of these believers, because of the way they lived during their life, that he's on his deathbed and he's so confident. The angels are coming now to take his soul, and he's so confident, he turns around to his sister and says, what makes you cry? Why are you crying? There's no need for you to cry. And then he points to one corner of the room and he says, this is where your brother sat down and he finished the Quran over 18,000 times. Why? Because for 40 years of his life, his ma'mul was such, his practice was such, that every day, minimum, he would recite one Quran. Any aspect of religion, when it came to fasting, you will find the likes of Amr ibn Qais al-Mala'i. He fasted for 20 years. Dawood ibn Abi Hind came. And this man fasted for 40 years. And with such sincerity that this man was a trader, a silk dealer. With such sincerity that even his own family members did not know that this man was fasting. And he managed to keep this a secret for 40 years, because what he would do was, he would go to the marketplace, and when he left home, he would take his meal with him, his packed lunch. And on the way as he was going to his market, he would see beggars. And he would give his lunch and his food to the beggars. And like this, in the evening, he would return and he would open his fast at home. The marketeers would think that this man every day eats at home. And his family would think every day that this man eats with the marketeers, and he managed to do this for 40 years of his life. The women were no different. You had the likes of Nafisa. She would fast by day and she would prostrate by night. And the people would say to Nafisa, Nafisa, take it easy upon yourself. Why do you exert yourself? Why do you do so much amal? Why do you do so much practice? And she would exclaim that I can see a barrier before me, and only the faizeen, only the successful ones will be able to cross this barrier. When she was on her deathbed, even on that day, this woman was fasting. And the people are sitting around her and forcing her to break her fast. And she turns around and says to these people, for 30 years I have been begging Allah, and I have been making one dua. I've been making one prayer, and that prayer is, oh Allah, I beg you, when you send the angel to take my soul, oh Allah, send him on the day in which I am fasting for your sake. Saying this, she left the world uttering the verses of the Quran. قُلْ لِمَنْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ قُلْ لِلَّهِ كَتَبَ عَلَى نَفْسِ رَحْمَةً. Say for whom is all that which is in the heavens and the earth. Say it is for Allah and Allah alone, who has taken it upon himself to be merciful to mankind. When it came to prayer, You know, you and I in this day and age, we struggle to just offer our 5 daily prayers, the biggest obligation. When it came to prayer, taken from our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who himself would stand in prayer for so long, that the hadith states, حَتَّى تَوَرَّمَتْ قَدَمَاهُ, that the blessed feet of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would begin to swell. And so many tears would flow from his eyes, that not only the blessed beard of Rasulullah would become wet, he would dampen the earth on which he would prostrate. And when the Sahaba would see Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which they consider such a pitiful condition, that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is exerting himself so much that tears are flowing from his eyes, his beard is wet, the ground on which he's prostrating is wet, they would exclaim, Ya Rasulullah, أتكلف هذا وقد غفر الله لك ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر. Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Messenger of Allah, you do so much and you prostrate so much and you worship Allah so much when you have no need. Allah has forgiven all your sins. You are second to the Almighty Allah. This is your status. You don't need to do this. Why do you do this? Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would exclaim and say to the Sahaba and explain, O my companions, if this is the status of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah has honored him, that he comes second to Allah and Allah has forgiven all his sins, then shouldn't أَفَلَا أَكُونَ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, then shouldn't Muhammad be a grateful slave and thank Allah for the blessings that is bestowed upon him? Taking this from our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would have heard the name of Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, Sayyid al-Tabi'een. For 50 years of his life, this man never missed takbir-ul-ula. Never missed takbir-ul-ula, never mind missing a prayer. Whenever the Imam said Allahu Akbar, this man was present inside the masjid, and with the Imam he said Allahu Akbar, and this is how he spent 50 years of his life. And at the same time, he did not see the back of any man in prayer. And the only way you can do this is if you're standing in the first saf. The likes of Abbad ibn Bishr, he's standing guard to protect Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and an enemy makes him out. And all of a sudden now arrows are being shot at him. And arrow after arrow is piercing his body. But look at the intoxication and look at the love for Allah. And it's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that whilst he is in prayer, and the arrows are piercing his body one after the other, and he's bleeding heavily, he keeps on taking the arrows out one after another, but he does not break his prayer. He's reciting Surah Kahf, and he's getting a buzz out of it, and he's getting this enjoyment out of it, and he's getting such peace that even though the arrows are piercing his body, he does not break his prayer. It is only when the thought crosses his mind that his death may jeopardize the safety of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When this thought crosses his mind, only then does he break his prayer. You had the likes of Urwa. You know, his left knee has just been amputated, and it's been amputated whilst the man was awake, whilst he was conscious. Even on that night, he woke up for his tahajjud and he stood before the Almighty Allah in prayer. You had the likes of Khubayb. He's now being taken to the gallows to be executed. And the non-believers ask him, "Can make a wish? We will fulfill your wish." And look at his wish. He says to them, "Can allow me to offer 2 rakats so I can speak with my Creator." So he offers his 2 rakats. And after this he says to them, "Had it not been for the fear that you people think that Khubayb is afraid of death, I would have asked you to allow me to say another 2 rakats so I could speak with my Creator." You had the likes of Thabit al-Bunani. What type of a person do you think this man was? Okay, never mind in this world. The dua that he would make all the time to Allah was this: "Okay, oh Allah, I beg you, if you allow anyone to pray inside his grave, I beg you, allow me, Thabit al-Bunani, to pray inside my grave." What type of a life do you think this man lived? That his dua and his prayer to Allah was this: "Ya Allah, I beg you, allow me to pray inside my grave if you allow anyone to pray inside his grave." Sila ibn Ashim has just married Mu'adha al-Adawiyah. First night of marriage, my friends, you and I, first night of marriage, we're probably in the 7th heaven. First night of marriage, Sila ibn Ashim and Mu'adha al-Adawiyah, thanking Allah for their blessings, spend the entire night worshipping their Creator. Such was the caliber of this woman. And may Allah make our women like this. That every night, this is the thought that would cross her mind. It is so possible that this is the night in which Allah will send the angel to take my soul. And when this thought would cross her mind, after fulfilling her obligation towards her husband, she would spend the entire night in worship. Entire night. When it came to seeking knowledge, where will the Ummah find men with such zeal? Allahu Akbar, you had the likes of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know, today, knowledge as, we insult it. You know, you had the likes of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, who travels all the way from Medina to Al-Munawwara. Where was Medina in those days when there were no cars, no trains, no helicopters, no planes? And where was Egypt, Misr? You know, in those days, it would take at least a month just to get there and a month to get back. Long, hard, arduous journey. And he travels all the way from Medina to Egypt just for the sake of one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's not that he did not know the hadith. He already knew the hadith. He just went all the way to verify one hadith. Now he gets to Egypt, and he meets the person that was narrating the hadith. And the person narrating the hadith was Sayyidina Uqbah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And when Sayyidina Uqbah saw the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Egypt, he was shocked. And he asked, "Ma ja'a bika ya Aba Ayyub?" "Oh Abu Ayyub, what brings you?" He says to him, "One hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is why I've come." Out of all those that directly heard this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, only you and I remain alive. I want you to relate the words of that hadith to me. And the hadith was with regards to concealing the faults of a believer. So Sayyidina Uqbah radiallahu ta'ala related that hadith to him. And after Sayyidina Uqbah had related the hadith to him, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala says, "Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth." This is exactly how I had heard it from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the remarkable thing is, my friends, after hearing that hadith of Rasulullah, he did not even stop in Egypt to have a bite to eat or even a cup of tea. He turned his mouth and he headed back for Medina al-Munawwara. This is the respect that they gave to the hadith of Rasulullah and they gave to knowledge. And today, my friends, we have made a mockery of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we have the internet. You know, everyone's a do-it-yourself scholar. Everyone, without hesitation gives fatwa. Everyone plays about with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you had the likes of Ibn al-Qasim. Ibn al-Qasim stayed at the feet of the great Imam Malik. I'm sure you've heard of Imam Malik, rahimahullah. He stayed at the feet of Malik acquiring knowledge for 17 years of his life. 17 years of his life, so much so that on one occasion, Imam Malik is in Medina al-Munawwara, and the Hujjaj, the pilgrims of Misr come, of Egypt come, and amongst these Hajjis is a young man. And his face is covered. And he comes to the gathering of the great Imam Malik, the Imam of Medina. He greets him with salam. And then he asks Imam Malik rahimahullah, "Can you tell me which from amongst you is Ibn al-Qasim? Which from amongst you is Ibn al-Qasim?" Ibn al-Qasim is pointed out to him. This young man whose face is covered, he now comes to Ibn al-Qasim and he begins to kiss the forehead of Ibn al-Qasim. Allahu Akbar, the remarkable thing was, Ibn al-Qasim did not even know that this person that was kissing his forehead was his own flesh and blood and his own son. Why? Because when he left home, Ibn al-Qasim, he left his wife in such a state that she was expecting. And he said to her, "Okay, now I'm going for the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you want to stay in my nikah, then I will keep you in my nikah. And if you choose a divorce, then I will divorce you." And this is the first time he's seeing his son after 17 years. And if you think, spending 17 years for the sake of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a sacrifice, then wait till you hear about the great Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi, the Andalusian and Spaniard scholar. He left his home twice. And the first time that this man was absent, he remained absent for 14 years. And the second time this man remained absent, he remained absent for 20 years. The man spent 34 years of his life just to acquire the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know how he did this? He was living in Spain, Muslim Spain, and he walked on foot. Allahu Akbar. He walked on foot from Muslim Spain all the way to Hijaz, Iraq, Makkah, Medina, and covered thousands of miles. This is the same Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Qurtubi who would live on cabbage leaves which people would throw away because he had no money to buy food. On many occasions he had to sell his lower garment just so that he could buy paper to write down the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You have the great Hafiz ibn Manda. You know, many of you sit here before me today are probably, in your 20s. Hafiz ibn Manda, when he left his home to acquire the knowledge of Islam, how old do you think he was? 20 years of age he was when he left his home. How old do you think he was when he returned home? The remarkable thing is, I'm sure he had a mother, he had a father, he had relatives, people that he loved. But such was the passion and love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when the great Hafiz ibn Manda, and I call him Hafiz because this man was not just Hafiz of Al-Quran, he was Hafiz al-Hadith. And the word Hafiz is given to that scholar who at least to the minimum knows 100,000 hadith of Rasulullah off by heart. He returned at the age of 65. 45 years he spent just to acquire the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You've heard of the great Shafi'i. 16 years of his life, Imam Shafi'i lived on dates. And only that much dates which he needed just to sustain himself. And the great Shafi'i could not afford paper, so he would write on leather and on bone. You had the great Yahya ibn Ma'in, Imam al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. The man inherited 1 million dirhams. We're talking about 1400, 1300 years ago. He inherited 1 million dirhams. In this day and age, you were to inherit 1 million dirhams, you'd be burning tires on your local motorway with your fast and brand new car. 1 million dirhams the man inherits, and he spends every penny just to acquire the hadith of Rasulullah. So much so that the narration says a time came when he had to sell his shoes just so that he could buy paper and write the hadith of Rasulullah. You've heard of Abu Yusuf, the student of Abu Hanifa. The man did not even attend the burial of his own son. His son died. He offered his janazah, but he did not attend the burial of his own son in case he missed the lecture of Abu Hanifa. You had the likes of Ishaq. Today you and I, we marry a woman. Why? Because she's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah? He married a woman, why? Because her last husband had the books of Shafi'i. Just so that he could benefit from the books of Shafi'i, he took this wife in marriage. Allahu Akbar, it shows passion. And as a result, do you think they would not excel? This is the same Ishaq that came to a stage that he said, whatever I have ever heard, I have memorized. And whatever I have memorized, I have not forgot it right till my death. The same Yahya ibn Ma'in who spent 1 million dirhams to acquire the hadith of Rasulullah, he says, I saw the day in which I wrote with my own hands 1 million hadith of Rasulullah. They became such masters that the likes of Imam al-Bukhari, when he came to Baghdad and the whole world had heard of the reputation of this young man, that he was so phenomenal when it came to the hadith of Rasulullah, that the great scholars of Baghdad want to put him to a test. So what they did was they took 100 hadith and they gave these hadiths, they mixed them up, the chain and the matan, the sanad and the matan, the chain and the text, they mixed them all up and they gave him to 10 people to relate before him. Now Imam Bukhari comes and they relate these hadiths to him. He listens to everything and he's just heard this just once. And then after hearing this all, he responds by relating all 100 as they were delivered to him, and then he rectifies them one by one. Okay, my friend, this is what you said. This hadith was incorrect. It should be like this. And he did this with all 100 of them. They became such masters that the likes of the great Firyabi, when he came to Baghdad, in some gatherings there were 30,000 people, and in some gatherings there were 70,000 people that would attend his lectures. Can you imagine? You know, in those days where there were no mics, where message was conveyed from mouth to mouth, how big of a gathering do you think there would be for 70,000 people sitting down, lovers of Rasulullah, writing down the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Allahu Akbar, you know, we can just dream of such gatherings. Dream of such gatherings. And you know, from the top of their heads, they were writing books. Abu Bakr al-Ambari, 30 books. You had Ibn Shaheen, 300 books. You had Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah alayh, 500 books. You know, they were just rolling them from the top of their heads. This is how Allah blessed them. When it came to speaking the truth, you had a Bedouin. The king Hisham ibn Abdul Malik asked him for some advice. And such was the zeal of this Bedouin that to the king Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, when he asked him for advice, he responded, the Quran is the best advisor. And then he recited the verses of the Quran to the king. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْطَوْفُونَ, in which Allah talks about the punishment of those people. Okay, when they have to receive something, they measure and weigh in full to receive it. However, when they have to give something, then they measure and weigh less just because they have to give less. So he read this verse of the Quran to the king Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, and he said to the king Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, if this is the punishment of one who gives less, what do you think is the punishment of one that keeps it all for himself? And he was referring to the king. You had Hadith al-Zayyad. Shaykh just mentioned about the Zalim Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who killed many Sahaba. He was an absolute tyrant. You had Hadith al-Zayyad, an 18-year-old young man. He's presented before Hajjaj. Hajjaj confirms, are you Hadith? He says, indeed I'm Hadith. Look at the passion of the young man. He says to Hajjaj, ask whatever you like. I have promised the Almighty Allah 3 things next to Maqam Ibrahim. I have promised Allah that if I have ever questioned, then I will not duck and dive. You know, in this day and age, we sell our iman for pennies. We won't duck and dive. I have promised the Almighty Allah, whatever I am questioned, I will speak the truth. And if I am tested, then I will be patient. And if Allah keeps me well, then I will thank Allah for His blessings. So Hajjaj asks, what is your opinion with regards to me? So he says to Hajjaj, oh Hajjaj, you are from amongst the enemies of Allah in the land. And you kill people without a valid reason. And then Hajjaj asked, what is your opinion with regards to the Amir al-Mu'mineen? He said, he's worse than you. Why? Because he is the one that has employed you, and you are from amongst the sins of the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was punished and tortured so much that his flesh and his skin was stripped from his bones. And you know, this 18-year-old, for the sake of Allah, did not even utter one word as much as uff. When it came to elevating the kalima la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, I mean, who can forget the words of Sayyidina, one of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I've forgotten his name at the moment, Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Mu'adh in the Battle of Badr, when he was consulted by our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was the response Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Mu'adh gave to our beloved Prophet? You know what he said to our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He said, Ya Rasulullah, we are all with you, every one of us. فَوَالَّذِي بَعْثَ بِالْحَقِّ لَوْ اسْتَعْرَضْتَ بِنَا الْبَحْرَ لَخُذْنَا مَا تَخَلَّفَ مِنَّا رَجُلٌ وَاحِدٌ. I swear by the one that has sent Muhammad with the truth. O Messenger of Allah, if you ask us to jump inside the oceans for you, then I swear by Allah, every one of us will jump inside the oceans, or not one of us will abstain. Uqba ibn Nafi, conquering city after city, he reaches the shores of the Atlantic. And when he gets to the shores of the Atlantic with his horse, he enters the water. And he keeps on going into the Atlantic. And when he realizes that his horse can go no further, this is where he raises his hands and he makes a dua. Allahumma ashhad inni kad balaghtu al-majhud wa lawla hadha al-bahr lamadaytu fil bilad. Oh Allah, I want you to bear witness that I have done everything that was within my power to convey the message La ilaha illallah. Oh Allah, had it not been for this ocean, then I would have assured you that I would have continued to convey the message La ilaha illallah till only you and you alone are worshipped in the entire universe. Amr ibn al-Jamuh was lame, he could barely walk. Yet, when the call came in the battle of Uhud, and his children are stopping him from participating in battle, he became deaf to the cries of his own flesh and blood, and he participated in Uhud till he was no more. You had the likes of Abdullah ibn Maktoum, Abasa wa Tawalla and Jaa wal A'ma. He was blind, he couldn't even see. Yet he would say to his companions, give me the flag, and then take me and place me on the battlefield in between the two fighting armies. I swear by Allah, I am blind, I will not run from the battlefield. In the battle of Qadisiyah, a Persian challenges the believers, and he makes the call, Man yubaris, who will come and fight me? Who will challenge me? From amongst the believers, Alba ibn Jahish al-Adli responds to the call. And he takes on this Persian. And in doing so, he's attacked. He falls down to the ground. His stomach has been cut open. His intestines fall to the ground. And you know, whilst he's there lying on the ground, he's trying to put his intestines back inside his stomach. And he's finding it difficult. He sees a believer going past and he asks him, my brother, help me with my intestines. And then this Muslim takes the intestines and puts them back in his stomach. In this condition, he now makes the effort to stand. Holding his stomach like this, he charges towards the enemy, and a few yards, and he meets his creator, he passes away. You had the likes of Umair ibn Wahab. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes the call. Kumu ila jannatin ardu was samawati wal ard. Stand to a paradise, the breadth of which is the seven heavens and the earth. The companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is shocked. Ya Rasulullah, this paradise of my creator is so big that the breadth is the seven heavens and the earth put together. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies in the affirmative. Indeed, Umair is so big that the breadth is seven heavens and the earth. You know, in enjoyment, he exclaims the words bakh bakh, which are uttered at the time of excitement and happiness. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam asks, Umair, what made you say bakh bakh? He said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in hope that I will be from amongst the inhabitants of paradise. Our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him glad tidings and said, Umair, be assured you are from amongst the inhabitants of paradise. Now he takes out some dates from his bag and he begins to eat them. Then all of a sudden he throws the dates on the floor and he says, you know, wait, for me to wait for these dates to finish, this life is too long. I want to go to paradise. He participates in the battle and he's martyred and he goes and meets his creator. They excelled in this field so much that Uqaydir was the king of Dawmatul Jundal. And this is what he testified to. He would testify, he would say, no people see the face of Khalid bin Walid, be they small in number or large in number, except that they are defeated. You know, when they began to fight the Persians, the Muslims, and you know, Persia was a superpower of the time. You know, the Persians were shocked, and what they couldn't believe is that these Bedouins of Arabia come in 300 in number, 500 in number, or 1,000 number, and this superpower of the time comes in tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and every time they defeated, they couldn't understand the logic behind this. So much so that they began to say, Diwan Ahmad, that these people you're not fighting, they're not human beings, these people are from another world, they are from the jinn. You know, when the Romans, their children would cry, they would scare them. And you know what they would say to them? They would say, be quiet, or Abdullah al-Battar will come and take you away. And when their horses wouldn't drink water, they would say to him, my friends, to the horse, okay, why are you not drinking water? Have you seen Ibn Fathun inside the water? Ibn Fathun was another Muslim warrior. Tell me what the Romans said. You know, when they met the forces of Tariq bin Ziyad, when they met the forces of Tariq bin Ziyad, Tadmir, a Roman, he wrote to his superiors. And you know what he wrote to his superiors? He said, Nazala bi'ardina qawmun la nadri amin as-samai hum amin al-ard. There are people have descended upon our land. We do not know whether these people are from this world or these people from the next world. And because of their bravery and their, courage. Who can forget such courage? Who can forget, the battle of Yarmouk and the words of the great Khalid bin Walid? In the battle of Yarmouk, you had over 200,000 more or less Romans. And on the other hand, you have a mere 36,000 Muslims, more or less. You know, the odds were for every 7 Romans, there was 1 Muslim. For every 7 Romans, there are 1 Muslim. And now, you know, on one side you have the believers, and on the other side you have the non-believers. Bahan was the Roman general. And he wants you to meet the great Khalid bin Walid. So now Khalid bin Walid comes from the Muslim side, and from that side Bahan comes, and they meet. And Bahan says to Khalid, "Oh Khalid, we know it is hunger that has driven you people from your homes. You come from the land of Arabia in which nothing grows. There's nothing there but sun and desert. And we know it is hunger that has driven you people from your homes. Khalid, why have you brought them to get killed? Take them home. We will give you food, and we will give you drink, and we will give you clothes. And for every soldier we will give you 10 dinars. And Khalid, we promise you next year, we will do exactly the same. We will give you food and drink and clothes and 10 dinars. What do you think the response of the great Khalid bin Walid was? On one hand, you have 200,000 Romans. On another hand, you have 36,000 believers. Such was the level of Iman that Khalid bin Walid said to Bahan, "Oh Bahan, let me tell you, it is not food and drink that has driven us from our homes. It is blood. We are a people that drink blood for a living, and we have been informed there is no blood sweeter than that of the Romans, and this is why we have come." You know, this was the level of Iman. How do you think the believers responded when Sa'd sent them to meet Rustam? Rustam wanted to meet these people that are now conquering land after land. So he wanted to meet them. So Sayyidina Sa'd, who was the Muslim general in the battle of Qadisiyah, he sent a group of believers to go meet Rustam. Now these group of believers come, you know, their clothes are torn. You know, some of them have got, you know, they don't even have the right weapons. And Rustam asks them the $1 million question. Okay, tell us why you have come. Look at the level of Iman of these companions of Rasulullah, that they say to Rustam, who was, you know, if not the most powerful man in the world at the time. If not the most powerful man. 2 superpowers at the time, the Romans and the Persians. They say to Rustam, "O Rustam, we have come to take that which Allah has promised. Allah has promised us your land. Allah has promised us your wealth, your children, your women, and we have yaqeen this is exactly what will happen." Bearing in mind, Rustam had 120,000 men. He had 80,000 in reserves, and he had elephants, many of which these people had never even seen before. You know, next day, Hazrat Rabi radiallahu ta'ala goes to meet Rustam. And Rustam now wants to intimidate the believers. So what he does is, he sits on a throne of gold. He wears, you know, robes of fine silk, decorated with, you know, precious stones. And, you know, beautiful carpets have been spread with golden embroidery. You know, couches, you know, with golden embroidery have been spread. No decorative thing has been spared. Why? Because he wants to intimidate the believers. You know, suffering from this superiority complex. Hazrat Rabi radiallahu ta'ala comes. You know how he comes? On his head he has the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He has the amama, the turban. He comes on a horse which can barely walk, lean and short. He has with him his sword, his bow and arrows, and a shield, and that shield was made out of cowhide. Like this, he comes, and when he gets to the courtiers, they stop him there. So you can't come like this with your sword. You know what he says to them? "I've not come on my own accord. I have come because you people have called me here. And if you don't like the way that I've come, then I will return." Now permission is given to him. So now he comes, he has with him his spear, and he's now leaning on that. And as he's making his way to Rustam, he's making holes in their carpets and their pillows. I mean, you can just sort of imagine that, my friends. Superpower of the time. This man is coming like this. All his soldiers will have been there. They'll have been watching this. You know, they will have been gobsmacked to see the courage of just one believer. And he makes his way to Rustam, and when he gets to Rustam, he thrushes his lance into his carpet, and he sits down on the floor. And then Rustam asks the $1 million question. Tell me why you have come. And these words are worthy that they be written in gold in every household. And this is how he answered. Allahu ibta'athana linukhrij man sha' min ibadati al-ibad ila ibadati Allah wa min dhiqi ad-dunya ila sa'atiha wa min jawri al-adyan ila adl al-Islam. Our purpose in life. We've come here as a minority. This should be our purpose. What? To share with the community what Allah has blessed us with, what Allah has given us. What? Allah has sent me. Why? To take out those whom Allah wills from the worship of man to the worship of Allah alone. From the narrowness of this world to the vastness of the hereafter. And from the tyranny of religions to the justice of Islam. Rustam says to him, let me think over this. So he says to Rustam, how many days would you like? 1 or 2? Rustam says, it's a big thing, I need to write to my leaders. He says, you have 3 days and no more. And after that, you have a choice of 1 or 3. Either it's the kalima, either it's the jizya, or either it's the safe. When he left, Rustam said to his people, oh, you fools. Don't look at his clothes and don't look at his weapons. Look at the soundness of the man. Look at the character of the man. Look at the zeal of the man. We try to intimidate them, and this man has ruled us in our own land. How do you think the King Harun Rashid responded when Nakfur the Roman, he refused to pay the jizya, and he threatened the King Harun Rashid with a sword? Number one, he refuses to pay the jizya, and secondly, he's threatening the King Harun Rashid with a sword that he will kill him. This is what Harun Rashid wrote to him. This was the letter. He wrote, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Min Abdillah Amir al-Mu'mineen ila Nakfur Kalb al-Rum. From the servant of Allah, commander of the faithful, to the dog of the Romans. قد قرأت كتابك يا ابن الكافرة الجواب ما قرأت دون أن تسمع. I've read your letter. You will see the response. You will not hear the response. There and then, King Harun Rashid left his palace and he did not return till Nakfur was defeated. In one narration is mentioned that after he conquered him, he came back to a place called Raqqa. And when he got to a place called Raqqa, he was informed that Nakfur's broken the treaty again because it's cold, it's winter, thinking that the Muslim soldiers will not come back again. So he broke the treaty again. But my friends, little did he know that Harun Rashid didn't, drink this milk which you can buy in cans nowadays. He went back and he conquered again. And this time made him pay 50,000 dirhams on behalf of all the inhabitants of the area. These people, any aspect of religion, when it came to turning away from dunya. Now you are like the Musab ibn Umair, a lesson for every one of us. One of the most richest youth in Makkah al-Mukarramah, before he